talking was always a part of who I am. And I remember through my life, my dad often said this phrase to me. He said, "You have verbal diarrhea." And in case you can't picture that, just like diarrhea, the words flow out of me without control. They just go any which direction they want. And talking was just something that was always what I did. At times, it was something that was good and exciting, and it actually helped me to get friends. I remember always coming into new situations and being able to meet people quickly and gain laughter and approval and praise easily. But talking sometimes also got me into trouble. Talking, at least it got me attention, though, because that was something I really, really wanted as a kid. I wanted attention from others, but sometimes, as I said, that attention was negative, especially at school. How many of you ever had a really chatty person in your class? They probably, yeah. Any of you were them? Yeah. So they didn't usually stay in class very long. And I remember, you might remember when you were in kindergarten in the early grades, they had this wonderful time called carpet time, right? Where you'd all come sit on the carpet and the teacher would read a story. And there was only two things in my mind that could ruin carpet time. The first was sitting in that close proximity if someone farted. It would just destroy carpet time. Never happened to me ever. But the second thing would be if I talked. I found I often derailed carpet time, took things out of direction and just ruined the moment for the teacher. The teacher would get mad at me, and then the book, like, no one finds out the conclusion because I decided to start talking halfway through it. And I never really thought putting up my hand was a good idea. Because I did well in school, and I thought, I need to get my answer out there so everyone knows that I'm smart. And so the teacher would say, "Anyone know the answer?" And I'd be like, "It's 5!" And she's like, "No, it's 6. Please stop yelling." And so I found that school was often a struggle for me because I talked so much. And that was, I remember in grade 2, when I spent almost every other day in the vice principal's office. I remember spending my days in there. I remember crying so much because I realized that if I cry, I could go back to my class sooner. So it was, sometimes talking got me in trouble, but sometimes talking was a bit smooth to get me out of things. And when I came into grade 6, I remember I had teachers trying all different methods and adults trying all different things to stop me from talking and interrupting things. My grade 6 teacher, she decided to move my desk right against her desk so she could look me in the eyes all day long. So as soon as I went, she'd be like, "Zip it." So every time I said, "Zip it." And so she shut me up very often. I remember in grade 7, I had teachers who I switched schools, and they mostly decided just to send me into the hall. My brother also got sent out in the hall often, and we would bring a ball with us and roll it down the hall to each other. The worst was every time the principal would come walking down the hall, I'd pretend I was going to the washroom, and then I'd get so far from my class, I'm like, if my teacher comes out, I'm going to get in trouble too. So I'd slowly start walking back, and the principal would be like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Just the washroom, but I forgot." She's like, "Come to my office," every time. So I was often in the office. But I remember one teacher when I was in grade 7, she had this novel approach. She ignored me, and I was like, how do you deal with this? I'm like, I'm trying to get attention from this teacher, and I'm talking so much, and she ignored me. And I remember I went to her desk one day, and I picked up a pair of scissors, and I cut my fingernails with her scissors at her desk, and she still ignored me. So the next day, I took her Kleenex box, which was full, and I blew my nose with every single Kleenex one by one till the box was empty, and she still didn't do anything. I realized it was because she knew I would come to understand that I had to finish all the things I missed at recess. And so I started missing recesses, and I realized maybe I should stop talking in class a little bit. So she was really the only teacher who actually made me realize I talked too much in class, and it has some negative consequences. But as I said, teachers and adults and other people in my life always tried different methods to stop me from talking. And sometimes they were hurtful. Actually, I remember one time when I was in middle school, we had a famous Canadian children's author who came to our school to do a presentation, and they were sharing about books, and midway through the presentation, I'm in grade 7. Grade 7s are usually jerks. No offense, grade 7s. I used to pastor them for years. I love them. But I was a jerk when I was in grade 7, and I remember midway through his thing, I got bored, and I just said something, and instead of him just laughing it off, he decided that he would come back after me. And so I had spiky hair back then, so he comes after, and he says to me, "Oh, look, I'm interrupting people. Look at my spiky hair." And my shoe is untied. He says, "And I don't even know how to tie my shoe. Look at me. I'm 13 years old, and I can't tie my shoes." And he starts making fun of me. And I was like, ha, 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 no. And I think I made fun of him back. But anyways, that's just, maybe I didn't. But I was hurt by that moment. I was like, this is an adult whose job is to write books for children. And here he is publicly shaming a child. And I was like, something's wrong with this situation. And I made this subconscious decision that I would never use my words in that way. That I realized how powerful words can be. they got me kicked out of class, but they could also actually hurt someone. It was a few years later, actually, by the time I turned 15, I was in grade 10, and I was still talking in class every day, getting kicked out of class. And eventually my parents were like, okay, he's not growing out of this. It's not just a childish thing. There's something wrong with this guy. And so they decided to take me to a doctor. And I remember walking into this doctor's office, a psychiatrist or something, someone who wasn't my regular doctor. And I walk into this office, and they're like, Daniel, we're going to take you in alone first. And so I walk into the room, and the lady starts asking me questions. She says something like, do you ever get in trouble for talking too much? And I'm like, absolutely not, never. And she said, do you ever feel like you can't control your level of energy in your talking? I said, no, I always feel in control. I don't know why anyone would think that. And the questions carried on like this, and I acted like this perfect child. She probably heard it a million times. And my mom comes in, and she basically, in a nutshell, she says, this kid is crazy, give him some pills. And so the doctor diagnosed me with ADHD, which was actually a surprise to me at the time. I thought I was just full of beans. Because the thing was, ADHD was always stereotyped to me as people who can't pay attention. And I'm like, I can pay attention, great. I just have way too much energy, and I talk way too much. But I realized there's different, and you guys know science and all that stuff. I won't get into that today, but there's all different ways in which it works. And so it kind of was also eye-opening to me because I was able to have some medication that helped me really understand who I am, but also function in a better way, I guess, as to how I was at that point. I've found I was able to control my outbursts of talking more and those sorts of things. And it was just eye-opening to realize that there was something unique about me. And I found it was actually kind of interesting. I used to joke with my siblings. I would go all crazy, and then I would take a pill and be like, oh, wow, I feel great now. I'm calm. It's all good. They work so fast. And so they were like, they believed me. They were younger, 1 year. But anyways, when I first met my wife, I was in university, my now wife, and I remember our first date, or our first time hanging out at least. It wasn't really a date. I remember she tells me later she didn't want to see me again after that because I talked too much. Well, I also had a faux hawk and sweaty armpits and blackberry seeds in my teeth, but she blamed the talking. And so it was weird. I was like, but did you see how I looked? Anyways, so luckily I was also able to use my words to smooth talk her into a second time together, and we watched a movie, so she fell in love with me because I didn't talk. And we've been having great one-sided conversations ever since. Things are awesome. We actually have 3 wonderful daughters, one of which has ADHD now as well. And part of the motivation I had for this talk was because I had a conversation with my daughter one day, and she said to me, Daddy, I get in trouble all the time for talking at school. I said, me too, baby. Still, I still get in trouble at meetings. People come to me after meetings like, can you just shut up sometimes? Like, no one else got to talk today. We all know your ideas and no one else's. Thank you for that. And I said to her, you know what? I realized that sometimes people will pay you to talk. Sometimes you can get a job doing the thing, or a life doing the thing that people didn't want you to do, as long as it's healthy. And so I realized at MoMondays, as Rob said, it's not supposed to be preachy. I'm a pastor, as he said. My job is to preach. I'm not going to preach to you tonight, but I just wanted to share a bit of something that I learned that inspired me in my story. As a Christian, I believe in this idea of a gift, these 2 words, gift and calling. And so I came to realize in my life that talking wasn't just a curse, but it was actually a gift. And I believe in my mind that God gave me this gift in order to benefit those around me. And so I began seeing talking in a different light. Maybe talking wasn't meant to get me attention or to get me into trouble, but it was actually meant to encourage others and to help others. And the same thing with calling. I realized that maybe I'm uniquely wired with this ability to talk and this love of talking, that maybe it's what I'm supposed to do with my life. And so I began to see things in a different light. And I found that this was the time where this really hit home was in that conversation with my daughter, when I was able to say, baby, the things that people fault you for and look down upon you for can be the very things in which you inspire others with. And so I felt encouraged as a life lesson that I learned, that the thing that I felt rejected for, the thing that I struggled with the most growing up now, is the thing that is a key part of my life. And that's what I feel motivated about. Thank you. Can we just